Everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of PRATHAM Test Prep. Myself, Juhi Sharma, and here we are with yet another session for economics. And in this particular session, we'll be covering. And in this particular session, we'll be covering the topic consumption function and saving function. Now, in the previous one, what we have covered is aggregate demand, aggregate supply, right? What is marginal propensity to consume? What is marginal propensity to save? And likewise, average propensity to consume and save. But in this particular one, we will be dealing with what consumption function is and what saving function is, right? So for class 12, we come live every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. right? Today, because of some technical issue, we weren't able to go live on time, but I guess better late than never, right? So consumption function and saving function. This is the topic which we're going to cover. Now, this is one such topic which creates a lot of trouble in the students because they are like, ma'am, ये topic ऐसा है तो समझ नहीं आ रहा, बहुत ज़्यादा confusing है. But trust me, it's very, very easy, and there are some very few, very small topics, I would say, which we have already covered in the previous session, but we will be taking up those again because those are like intellect, right? So yeah, without wasting too much of time, let's quickly see what is consumption function, what is saving function, and what are the average and marginal propensity to consume and marginal and average propensity to save, right? So as we have discussed in the previous session too, right, that what is consumption function? Consumption function is what? It is nothing but is a functional relationship between consumption and income, right? Now, what is consumption function? That it is a functional relationship between consumption and income. If we have to write an equation for consumption function, it is C is equal to C bar plus C y, right? Now, what is this C? C is actually consumption, right? And what is C bar? C bar is autonomous consumption. Now, what is this autonomous consumption? Autonomous consumption is that even if the income is zero, right, there will be some sort of consumption. अगर कोई बंदा कुछ भी अर्न नहीं कर रहा है, स्टिल उसका जो डेली नीड्स है, एज इन जो उसके 2 meals of the day है, वो तो वो कंज्यूम करेगा ही. So that sort of consumption is known as autonomous consumption, right? And CY is actually the induced consumption and Y is the income, right? So consumption function is what? It is actually the relationship between consumption and the income. So जैसे income है उसके हिसाब से what is the consumption and everything, right? Now you need to know that even when the income is zero, the consumption curve, it starts from what? It starts from the y-axis. Now let me just quickly show you that suppose this is x-axis, y-axis, and this is x-axis, right? So whenever we are drawing the consumption curve, we will never ever start this curve from here. From origin, from O, we will never be starting this consumption curve. Why? Because consumption can never ever be zero, right? So we always start making the consumption curve from the y-axis, and this small portion of consumption is known as the autonomous consumption, okay? So that is what this particular line is all about, that the consumption curve, it starts from y-axis, that even if the income is zero, there will be some sort of consumption, and that will be what? That will be the autonomous consumption. So if I have to give you a proper definition of what autonomous consumption is, so it is that consumption which is denoted by C bar, right? And it is not affected by the income. You can say that this consumption, or the autonomous consumption, is unaffected by the income. So what I am telling you, that even if the income is zero, there will be some sort of consumption, and that consumption is known as autonomous consumption, which is independent of the income. However, we have induced consumption too. Now, what is induced consumption? Induced consumption is something which is dependent on the income, which is dependent upon the earnings. So if your income is high, obviously we tend to have a higher consumption level, right? So that is known as what? That is known as induced consumption, okay? So what is induced consumption? That this is that consumption which is dependent on earnings, which is dependent on income, and it is what unlike autonomous consumption is. Autonomous consumption is what? It is like a mandatory consumption. Okay. Autonomous consumption is what? It is like a mandatory consumption, whereas induced consumption is, you know, dependent consumption. Agar zyada income hoga to zyada consumption hoga, kam income hoga to kam consumption hoga. So that is what there are two types of consumptions. We have autonomous and induced, right? Now moving further, we have two ways in which, or we can say that propensity to consume, there are two types of propensity to consume. This also we have covered in the previous session, but here in this particular one, I wanted to cover some important pointers regarding APC, MPC, APS, and MPS, right? So when I have to tell you about propensity to consume, so there are two propensity to consume. One is the average propensity to consume, and the other one is the marginal propensity to consume, right? What is average propensity to consume? That is the consumption per unit of income. Her unit of income के साथ साथ जितना consumption आपका हो रहा है, that is actually the average propensity to consume, right? So it refers to the consumption per unit of income, and in general, if you have to give the equation for it, or if you have to calculate that what is APC, then consumption upon income, C by Y is the equation for that, right? Now there are certain points that you need to remember about APC. जब भी आपका APC curve बना रहे हो या कुछ भी आप APC के बारे में study करो, there are few pointers which you need to know, right? So there are three possible conditions. Either APC will be equal to 1, or APC will be greater than 1, or APC will be less than 1, right? So let's start with the very simple thing that when APC is equal to 1, ये कब आपका APC 1 कब होता है? बहुत सिंपल सी बात है, जब आपका consumption जो है वो equal होगा with the income, right? At the break even point, in that case we will say that APC will be equal to 1. Very easy. When the consumption is what? When the consumption is equal to the income or the national income. Now, why we are taking national income here? Because it is a macroeconomic aggregate, right? So that's why we are not considering here the individual income. Sabki income hum le rahe hain, so that is what? That is actually the national income, right? Yes, Arpit, that APC cannot be negative, because the consumption cannot be negative at all. Hamesha there will be some sort of consumption or the other, right? Now, the second point or the second criterion over here is that APC is greater than 1. When is APC greater than 1? जब भी आपका consumption ज़्यादा हो जाता है than the national income, before the break-even point, in that case, we say that APC is greater than 1. What is APC? APC is C by Y, right? Consumption per unit of income, right? Now, moving further to the third situation which can happen, that is APC is less than 1. जब आपका जो APC है वो आपका national income को exceed नहीं कर रहा है, it is less than 1. After the break-even point of consumption, it exceeds the national income. In that case, we say that APC is less than 1. So basically, तीन criteria है, आपके तीन situations है. या तो APC 1 के equal होगा when consumption is equals to national income at the break-even point. APC is greater than 1 when the consumption exceeds the national income at the break-even point, and APC is less than 1 when the consumption is less than the national income at the break-even point, right? Now, you need to know, as Arpit was saying, that there is an inverse relationship between this and income, right? So, जैसे जैसे आपका APC decrease होता है, वैसे वैसे क्या होता है, आपका income जो है वो increase होता है, right? जैसे जैसे आपका average propensity to consume कम होता जाएगा as the income increases, and hence the income and APC is what? Income and AC are inversely related. Why? जैसे हमने law demand में पढ़ा कि अगर quantity demanded raise होता है तो price कम होता है and vice versa, right? It shows a negative relationship. So again, there is an inverse relationship with this of income, right? Now moving further, we have that APC can never be 0. Why? This is something which I have been telling you since the session got started, that APC can never be 0 because we always have some sort of autonomous consumption, right? Never ever we can start the curve, the consumption curve from zero or from origin, because always there will be at least some sort of consumption, even if the income is zero, even if the national income is at zero level, kuch na kuch to consumption hoga hi, chahe fir wo 2 meals ka ho ya jo bhi ho. So that is what we say that APC can never ever be zero, because we always have autonomous consumption in that case, right? So these are some important pointers which are related to the average propensity to consume. Okay. Moving further, we have marginal propensity to consume. Abhi marginal propensity to consume kya hai? Again, it is pretty much similar to what average propensity to consume is. The only difference is that we take in consideration the change. Okay. So what is marginal propensity to consume? It is actually the change in income with per unit change in consumption. Okay. जैसे जैसे आपका income change हो रहा है, वैसे वैसे per unit consumption में जो आपका change हो रहा है, that is what marginal propensity to consume is all about. Now we know that we have studied in our junior classes that change is always denoted by this delta. Okay, we always denote change by this delta. So again, the marginal propensity to consume का जो formula hoga, what it will be? It will be delta C upon delta Y, that is change in consumption per unit of income. But jo change ho raha hai, that is actually what marginal propensity to consume is, right? So delta C by delta Y is the formula for calculating the marginal propensity to consume, right? Now, again, there are a few pointers which are related to MPC. Now, before that, the major thing you need to know that APC का value will always be greater than MPC, right? Because APC क्या है? APC आपका है. APC does not denote the change. MPC में हम change लेते हैं, so obviously the change will be smaller than the total value, right? So APC का value will always be greater than MPC, right? Now there are three scenarios in which number one, MPC is equal to 0. जब भी जितनी भी extra income consume हो रहा है, अगर वो सारा का सारा, for example, अगर let's say if somebody is earning 10 rupees, let's say, right? उसके बाद उसका income बढ़ गया, and the extra income which he is earning, अगर वो भी consume कर रहे हैं, in that case we say that marginal propensity to consume is equals to 1. Why? Because उस case में जो आपका C होगा, change in consumption will be equal to change in income, and in that case MPC will be equal to 1, right? Now what if जितना भी additional income है वो XYZ person is not consuming or is not spending or is not investing that income, rather that particular person is saving that additional income, right? So when a person saves, right, MPC is equals to 0 कब होता है? Whenever the additional income is saved, right? So for example, taking forward from the previous example, let's say somebody is earning 10 rupees and later on he earns like 15 rupees, right? So जो additional income है वो consume करने के बजाय वो पूरा का पूरा वो person is saving. In that case we say that MPC is equals to 0. Okay, right? MPC is equals to 0. Now next pointer is the constant MPC. Constant MPC क्या होता है? Constant MPC is actually the MPC का slope. MPC का जब हम curve बनाते हैं, right? So MPC is the slope of consumption curve. We know that. जैसे suppose we make this as a consumption curve. यहाँ पर change हो, यहाँ पर change हो, यहाँ से जो हम change denote कर रहे हैं, right? So if the slope of the consumption curve it remains constant in the short run, always keep in mind that in the short run we're talking about. So if it remains constant, we say that it is a constant MPC, right? It is a constant MPC. Okay, Arpit, you only decide that what if the income is not increased, income आपकी increase नहीं हुई, वो additional जो income थी वो आपने consume नहीं करी, तो फिर उसके बाद तो point ही नहीं बचा ना MPC being negative over here, right? So MPC is equal to 0, MPC can be equal to 1. When the extra income is consumed, उस case में MPC will be equal to 1. When the additional income is saved, उस case में MPC will be equal to 0. For that, the income, for your question, the income has to get decreased, right? Now, next we have the saving function. Saving function is something I think which we have also covered in the previous session, but again, since it is related to the topics which are going to study now, saving function kya hai? It is actually the functional relationship between savings and national income, right? Saving और income के बीच का जो relationship है, जो functional relationship है, that is actually what saving function is all about. Okay. Now simple सी बात है, total income जितना है उसमें से कितना total saving हो रहा है, that is what, that is the average propensity to save, and change in income जो हो रहा है उसके हिसाब से change in savings कितना हो रहा है, that is actually what the marginal propensity to save is all about, right? So simple as saving function, that it is actually a relationship between savings and national income, and which is denoted by S is equals to Fy, whereas S is the savings, Y is the national income, and F stands for functional relationship. Okay, again we have two types of saving functions. We have average propensity to save, and then we have marginal propensity to save. What is average propensity to save? That is APS. That is actually the ratio of total savings to total income, right? So APS क्या होगा? APS होगा normal आपका, अगर आप formula लिख रहे हैं, so if you are equating it, it will be S by Y. Total savings upon total income. As in जितना भी income है उसमें से how much part is saved, that is actually what APS is all about, right? Whereas if I have to tell you about MPS, right, which is marginal propensity to save, that is actually the change in savings to the change in income. अगर आपका income change हुआ, so what part are you saving? If your income has increased, तो आपने अपनी savings increase करी है कि नहीं? अगर income कम हुई है तो क्या आपने savings कम करे हैं नहीं? So that is what MPS is all about. That how much part of increased income is saved, right? So marginal propensity to save क्या है? अगर आपका income increase हुआ, so how much part of it you have saved, which is denoted by delta S by delta Y. Okay, that is change in savings by change in income. Okay, now moving further, again like we had average propensity to consume, marginal propensity to consume, उसी की तरह we have average propensity to save. Now what is average propensity to save? That is savings per unit of income, जो आपका denote होता है S by Y से, right? अभी just हमने पढ़ा कि what part of income are you saving if the income is increased, right? Now there are a few pointers which you need to know about APS, that is average propensity to save. Number one is that APS, right, या फिर number one point is कि savings जो आपका है वो कभी भी income के equal नहीं हो सकता. Let's say if somebody is earning 5 lakh rupees per year, annual income अगर 5 lakh है, so it is not possible to save that 5, right? So savings can never ever be equal or greater than income. ऐसा नहीं अगर 5 लाख का income आ रहा है तो वो 6 लाख 7 लाख 8 लाख save कर रहे हैं, right? So the point one is that savings can never be equal or greater than income. So APS can never be one or more than one. आपका कभी भी जो APS होगा वो 1 नहीं होगा, 1 से ज्यादा नहीं होगा. It will always and always be less than income, right? That is one thing. Second pointer you need to know that APS can be zero, right? APS किस condition में zero हो सकता है? Average propensity to consume किस condition में zero हो सकता है? अगर आपका income is equals to consumption and savings आपका zero हो. आपको जितना भी आपका income आ रहा है वो सारा consume कर ले रहे हो, savings बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. जितना income है उतना ही consumption है. Savings are zero. In that case, we say that average propensity to save is zero, right? It means what? That a person is consuming everything and anything which he or he is earning and there are no savings at all. In that case, we say that APS is equals to zero, right? Second thing you need to know that when the consumption exceeds the income, right? जब भी आपका consumption जो है income को exceed कर देता है, which is actually at the lower of the break even point. जब हम graph बनाते हैं, break even point से नीचे उसका position आता है, वो क्या होता है? वो scenario होता है when the consumption it exceeds the income. Let's say again, income है 5 lakh per annum, right? And consumption क्या हो रहा है? Consumption आपका ज्यादा हो रहा है, 6 लाख 7 लाख हो रहा है. In that case, we say that average propensity to save is negative. राइट उस केस में एवरेज प्रोपेंसिटी टू सेव क्या होगा? नेगेटिव होगा, राइट. एंड दूसरा क्या है? जैसे जैसे आपका इनकम बढ़ता जाता है वैसे वैसे प्रोपेंसिटी टू सेव आल्सो इंक्रीजेस, एंड इन दैट केस वी से दैट average propensity to save and income, they are what? They are directly related or they are positively related, they are positive. Why? Because जैसे जैसे income बढ़ रहे वैसे वैसे अगर savings भी बढ़े, in that case we say that APS and income are directly related, right? Now moving further to marginal propensity to consume. Now marginal propensity to consume का मैंने आपको क्या बताया, that वही change in savings with per unit change in income. जैसे जैसे आपके savings change हो रहे हैं with per unit change in income is actually what marginal propensity to save is all about, right? And there are few pointers which are related to marginal propensity to save. पहला क्या है कि आपका जो marginal propensity to save है, it will range from 0 to 1, right? It will range from 0 to 1. So having said this particular thing, right, अर्पित आपका ये क्वेश्चन ऑलरेडी आंसर हो गया है that 0 से 1 के बीच में ये जाएगा, बिकॉज इनकम नीचे जा रही है, सेविंग नीचे जा रही है, वो बहुत ही रेयर के सिनेरियो में है. सो नंबर 1 दैट इट रेंजेस फ्रॉम 0 to 1, राइट. जो भी आपका सेविंग कर्व होगा दैट इज एक्चुअली द मार्जिनल प्रोपेंसिटी टू सेव, राइट. सेविंग कर्व का जो भी स्लोप होगा, स्लोप में क्या होता है, स्लोप एक्चुअली टेल्स अस द चेंज, राइट. Slope actually tells us the change. So MPS जो होगा it will be the saving curves का slope. और short run में again it is a very similar point that in short run MPS remains constant. Marginal propensity to save जो है वो constant रहता है short run में. Long run में क्या होता है, long run में marginal propensity to save might vary but in the short run it remains constant. Now अभी हम बहुत देर से APC, MPC, MPC, APC इन सब की बात कर रहे हैं. Now you need to understand the relationship between APC and APS, MPC and MPS, right? So basically ये आपसे एग्जाम्स में भी पूछा जाता है that what is the relation between APC and APS and what's the relation between MPC and MPS. Okay, now you need to understand one thing कि APC और APS की अगर मैं बात करती हूँ so that is always equal to 1. Okay, average propensity to consume or average propensity to save अगर आप add करते हो you will always get 1, right? So that is one thing. Average propensity to consume, average propensity to save is always equal to 1. So see, we know that y is equals to consumption plus savings. Income is equal to क्या है, income is equals to consumption plus savings है. Now if we divide both the sides by y, हमने दोनों sides को y से divide करा तो हमें क्या मिला, हमें ये equation मिली कि y upon y is equals to c upon y plus s upon y, right? y upon y क्या हो गया, y upon y हो गया आपको 1. okay, c by y हमने क्या पढ़ा था कि जो हमारा APC है that is actually what, consumption per unit of income. So that is what, that is APC, and हमारा savings per unit of income क्या होगा, that is average propensity to save, right? So therefore we have APC is equal, APC plus APS is equals to 1. Basically average propensity to consume and average propensity to save का जो when you join that, when we combine it, that gives us 1. and ये पूरा है आपका क्या, that is actually the derivation of the same, right? Moving further, likewise we have MPC and MPS. ये भी बहुत ही इसके ज़्यादा similar है. The only difference over here is that we will substitute y by delta y, we'll substitute c by delta c, and we'll substitute s by delta s. More or less each and everything remains the same. Okay, so again MPC is plus MPS is equals to 1. क्या होता है आपका, y is equals to c plus s, that is income is equals to consumption plus savings, right? Again delta y, that is change in income, is equals to what, change in consumption plus change in savings. Very easy. We know that MPC क्या है, MPC is actually delta c by delta y. We know that MPS is equals to delta s by delta y. So here we have divided it with y on both the sides, and हमें क्या मिला, हमें मिला that MPC plus MPS is equals to 1. That is both of them are the same. बस फर्क क्या है कि MPC and MPS, since MPC and MPS में we talk about change, so all the derivation, the entire derivation and the entire this thing remains the same. The only difference is the change, right? And then yeah, both the sides divide by y or delta y and we'll pick your answer. That is MPC plus MPS is equals to 1 and APC plus APS is equals to 1. So that is all about the relationship between APS and APC, MPS and MPC. And with this, we have almost covered all the important pointers related to savings and consumption function. Thank you so much for staying tuned. In the next session, we'll be talking each and everything about investment, employment, and all these things. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe. And yeah, if you like this video, give this a thumbs up. Subscribe to Pratham Test Prep channel if you haven't already. Bye-bye, guys. Take care.